Welcome to Geeks. Today we're going to look at Avatar in the real world. For this video we're going to look at the strengths and weaknesses of each of the four nations' cultures. For you war buffs out there, we're going to get to the 100-Year War and look at the military capabilities of each nation. Don't worry, that's going to be the last video. So let's first start with the Air Nomads. As General Iroh stated, the Air Nomads detached themselves from worldly concerns. They focused on gaining freedom and peace. In which case, that was the best aspect of the Air Nomads: the ability to detach themselves from from the world itself. The Air Nomads were a traveling bunch that had temples in each of the corners of the globe. From there, they were able to experience other cultures and learn from them, while also developing their own philosophies of life. The Air Nomads were very spiritual, so in a way they were theologians, and they were also open-minded society, as one of the first nations in the Avatar world to actually be open about sexual orientation, whether heterosexual or homosexuality. Thus, the Air Nomads were way ahead of their times, even before their eventual destruction, which is a sad thing. But in terms of other positivities, the Air Nomads were at one with nature, almost in the same sense of transcendentalists in the mid-19th century. In which case, the Air Nomads worshipped their sky bisons, which were the original airbenders in their philosophies. They never killed animals or ate meat, so entirely vegan. And as another note, they were more conservative about their use of nature or having to damage nature. Sure, they would take a few branches to make firewood, but they wouldn't do anything as extreme as, for example, cutting down a whole tree for a month's supply of firewood. So the Air Nomads were in a sense almost as a mix of transcendentalists, but also the hippies of the 1960s. But on towards the Air Nomads were perhaps the liberal arts of the Avatar world, having a deep sense of philosophy, both nature, but also spiritual philosophy, and also philosophy of how politics. As we see in Legend of Korra through the acts of Guru Lahima and also through Zahir, the Air Nomads at times preach philosophy about letting go of anything that could hamper one's freedom. To them, life, whether as an air nomad or as a person in general, should be free-flowing like the air that they bent naturally. However, this philosophy was not something that could be all enjoyed. Out of all the air nomads, only 2 airbenders were able to achieve the full potential of air nomad philosophy of letting go of oneself. That being Guru Lahima and Zahir, who both achieved the power of unassisted flight. So that shows that no matter if you were a monk or an airbending avatar, there were still manners of attachment to the world that kept you from achieving the full air nomad philosophy, which is something that unlike the Jedi of the Clone Wars era, the Air Nomads were more open about. They didn't punish or reprimand any air nomad or monk from having some sort of sense of worldly possessions, as the air nomads recognize that as human beings, we have our methods of staying connected, whether through our pets, our desires, or through the people that we love and hopefully love us. In which case, that keeps us grounded and keeps us from being fully transcended into a world of just pure air. But another weakness of the Air Nomads was, even though they preached freedom, the Air Nomads did not respect this aspect. If we look at the reasons why Avatar Aang ran away, it was because his freedom of choice and his freedom to at least experience life from his angle was taken from him by the Air Nomads themselves. At first, they tell Aang about his position as the Avatar at the age of 12, which was traditionally, it was 16 that a person would be told that he or she was the Avatar. We can understand the reasoning for this was in preparation for the 100-Year War, but however, from there, the Air Nomads tried to control Aang's teachings as more as him being a savior of an entire world, rather than looking at the fact that as a child, Aang still had various acts of freedom that he wanted to experience. Another sad example was when it came to his fellow peers. Well, at age 12, Aang was an airbending master, and technically speaking, when he did play games with his fellow peers, he already had an advantage compared to them, who had no airbending tattoos or no mastery of airbending. But once it says, as the Avatar came along, all of his peers basically shunned him, because they felt that having him on one of their teams was basically a disadvantage. When you take into account how 170 years later, during the acts of Legend of Korra, Korra was able to play pro bending despite being the Avatar. She was limited just to her native element of water. It shows that the air nomads were kind of restricted when it came to letting themselves experience freedoms within their culture. But we can even see it extended to other cultures as well. When we look at Tenzin's teaching of Korra in Season 1, and when we look at his establishment of the Air Nomads, at least in early Season 3, he tried to get both Korra and the new Air Nomads to adhere to Air Nomads' philosophies. In both cases, it didn't work, as Korra, being the rebellious teenager she is, she wasn't able to find that spiritual oneness or that sense of calm that Air Nomad philosophies allowed. She was able to find it in pro bending, which showed Tenzin how, in certain cases, letting people experience airbending philosophies from their own perspectives was a positivity. And the same thing could be said when it came to when he established his Air Nomad, culture, which he was able to reform into the Air Nation, as he saw one weakness of the Air Nomads, which was the inability to help perceive conflicts. Sure, while the Air Nomads was able to foresee the 100-Year War, the Air Nomads were a pacifist group. Now, there's nothing wrong with pacifism. I myself consider myself a pacifist, as I'm not adherent with violence. However, even if you try to disconnect yourself to the world, you can't disconnect yourself to some of the conflicts that arise in it. You at times have to adhere to each side of the conflict. If you try to maintain a middle ground, it's possible, but however, you need to be able to foresee that if action has to be taken, you have to take it. While the Air Nomads did travel around to the other three nations, they never took a deeper look to see what sort of conflicts were arising in, say, the Earth Kingdom, which was a heavily divided nation in and of itself, nor did they try to take steps to at least help not prevent, but at least keep conflict from escalating. While the Air Nomads, like I said, the Air Nomads were able to perceive the 100-Year War coming, they did not provide any sort of hint or warning to the Water Tribes or to the Earth Kingdom itself. In which case, where would you fit in if you were an Air Nomad? And so, to be an Air Nomad, you would have to be someone that has a really chill personality with life. You're open-minded, you have a deep sense of spirituality, and by spirituality, I'm not saying it has to be just one religion, but just an overall respect for all religious beliefs, a deep connection with nature, and you're someone that likes to go with the flow of life. My one suggestion would be, remember to keep yourself grounded in between looking up in the clouds, as obviously there's a world underneath your feet and you must adhere to whatever is happening in your surroundings. That wraps it up for the Air Nomads. Our next video will take us to the almighty Earth Kingdom, which is more diverse, which is not only as diverse as today's modern world, but as deeply conflicted as well. Thank you for joining in, and we will see you in the future.